sitting next to me on the front bench will be keen to hear about that evidence when they find additional resources for this very important area of work in the future.
Second oral question, Ms Fox of Buckley.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name.
My Lords, the Government values the collection of high quality and robust data on this topic. The Government Statistical Service will publish a work plan for updated, harmonised standards and guidance on sex and gender in December this year. This will align with the Office for Statistics Regulation guidance on collecting and reporting data about sex and gender identity, which was published in February.
I thank the Minister for that reply. In addition, could I ask her in the meantime to look closely at one worrying consequence, which is that NHS data standards were updated to reflect those very same compromised gender identity questions used in the census. And GenSpect UK research shows a significant number of GPs also use them, which in theory means every time someone registers with a new doctor, patients can informally change the sex registered on their health records. And just finally, does the Minister agree that this is concerning because biological sex influences everything from diagnosis to treatment, and therefore the recording of accurate sex data in NHS records is essential for safe and appropriate healthcare?
The reason why it's so important that we allow the independent statistical services to develop the question appropriately is precisely because it will be used more widely in other public services, and of course it's important that that has the confidence of those who are responding to the question and the confidence of the services that are being provided. And so to that extent I share her concern to ensure that that statistical collection is robust and appropriate and is informing services, including the NHS, in a way that users need it to.
The Minister, the Noble Lady, the Minister, will acknowledge that given the downgraded English figures gave the trans and non-binary population as 0.55, and Scottish, Welsh, Canadian, USA and GP patients, we found that it was only 0.44%. I think we can conclude that the English census figures is not a million miles out, and the actual number of people in question is tiny in proportion to the amount of time we spend talking about them. So can't we instead just use these figures to help design services appropriately for them and move on?
Well, this is my first opportunity to answer a question on this in this House. But I certainly take the Noble Lady's point that what is important is, yes, of course, that we have accurate and respected statistics, but that also we are providing services to people on the basis of their needs, and particularly for those LGBT plus people, that they are safe, included and protected from discrimination. And that, along with the protection of sex-based rights where necessary, will be what this government will focus on.
The Noble Lady, the Minister, may have noticed that every questionnaire one comes across these days, applying for a job, filling in a questionnaire online, the final question is always about sex, gender, identity, binary, umpteen choices. How can someone filling in the form know what they are supposed to be if they don't have a gender recognition certificate? What is the accurate answer? And how does one get people whose first language is not English to understand in particular NHS forms where the question is crucial?
Well, I would point out that this most recent census was the first time, in fact, that this question was asked. I do think it's important that we have a range of questions that are asked in the census on a voluntary basis in this particular case, but I also think it's important that they are designed in a way that is accessible and that people understand, and that understand the terms that are being used in them. And that's precisely why the Government Statistical Service will be undertaking the work that I outlined in my initial answer.
My Lords, Lord Shinquin is participating remotely.
My Lords, One area where the data in the 2021 census is accurate is disability. I can't help thinking that if a fraction of the energy and resources devoted to identity politics have been given to disability access in the 30 years since the DDA was passed by your Lordship's House, the world.
I think I can probably understand how the Noble Lord was going to finish his question. I tend to agree with him, and I will be committed alongside my other equality responsibilities to this House to ensuring that we make progress on disability access as well.
My Lords, having listened to the questions posed by Noble Lords and the sensible responses from my noble friend the Minister, the question really is that we need accurate data on sex and gender identity, and it's about finding the right way to get that data. And I've asked my noble friend the Minister that a climate of distrust and defensiveness is unhelpful if our researchers need to advance our understanding in this area without the fear of accusations of bias.
I think my noble friend is absolutely right. It's important that academics and researchers can do their work. In the sphere of government statistics, it's important that those are determined and regulated independently from government and political arguments, and that's what the work plan that will be set out in December is intended to ensure happens.
As this question is about the census, will the noble lady, the Minister, encourage the Cabinet Office to do something about the lack of comparability between England on the one hand and Scotland and Wales on the other on many vital statistics of importance to the public, like waiting times in the NHS? This was highlighted by the excellent independent review of the UK Statistics Authority by Professor Livesley, and it would be nice to see progress on that area.
I'm not sure that waiting times in the NHS are part of the census, but I take the noble lady's point nevertheless, and I think it's, whilst, as I've emphasised, the development of statistical measures is something that should be done independently of government. I'm sure that coordination where appropriate between the devolved administrations will be a good idea.
Throughout the criminal justice system, sex registered at birth is the most important variable in the analysis of crime and offending. It underpins the planning of policing services, risk assessments and offender treatment programs. But recent Freedom of Information requests reveal that most police forces in England and Wales no longer record sex registered at birth. Instead, they record the offender's self-declared gender identity, astonishingly, even when the offence is rape. What is the government doing to stop this corruption of the fundamental data used throughout the criminal justice system?
Here.
The Noble Lord identifies why it's important that we have clarity about the measures being used, and in order to ensure that services are appropriate to people, and that's the objective of the work plan that will be set out in December, which will then will have engagement around it, so that we can be clear about the measures and the definitions, not just in the census, but for the broad range of public authorities, including in the criminal justice system, that need to use them as well.
The previous government commissioned an independent review led by Professor Alice Sullivan of University College London, who is a statistics expert, to look at problems as exemplified by the census fiasco and set out good practice on how to collect data. I believe this review by Professor Sullivan, it was due to report back in August. Will the government publish the Sullivan review and its response to it?
The first part of the review has been received by the government, who are currently considering it, and I will undertake to come back to this House with a response to that.
Does the government have a working definition of gender and gender identity, and if so, could they share it with the House?
I think the Noble Lord would be well advised to look at the Equality Act, for example, but I have to say that I have to say I have to say that I think this would be a better debate if we spent more time worrying about how we provide services, how we account for people's needs, and less about how we catch our political opponents out.
As a previous health minister, there's a very serious health reason to have a proper understanding of the question and the answer in terms of when a woman is a woman and needs to have treatment based on her sex. So please, this is a very serious question which I think deserves a serious answer.
Well, I agree. A woman is an adult female, and her biological sex may well determine what services she needs from the NHS. That's why it's important that in statistics, which are used both in the census and more broadly by our public services, we have a consistent and an agreed approach to that. And that's what I've been talking about up to this point. And I think, frankly, I was taking it seriously, and I hope that others around the House will as well.
Third question.